Hello campers, I'm Lester. No, I am not a city, that's my name. If you're enjoying the music that you're hearing, that's good, because I was the one that made it. Check out my music on SoundCloud, if you feel like it. Shameless plug over, without further delay, I'm here at gunpoint to introduce this week's Benny Shakes Things Up. Without further ado, here's Benny.
Hi. Did you like that music? Oh, yeah, that.
I mean, it's different. Oh, we're the other way around. We're normally. Hello, internet. Hi, everyone. Hello. Welcome to a. I'm just going to speak for us now, Benny. Welcome to another Benny Shakes Things Up.
Yeah.
You talk now.
Yeah, fine. So, did you like the music?
I did like the music. It sounds very like Surrealist Cola. I love it. I gotta say, Lester, I love your music, and that's meant with love. So it's meant from a good place.
Well, we've had a busy week.
Yeah.
Haven't we? We both did G and B.
G and B.
G and B.
Yeah.
And B. Right.
Yeah.
I got it right.
That's all right.
Yeah.
We're good.
For Cole. What's his surname?
His surname is Wallace. Kyle Wallace.
All right. Fair dues. So, yeah, it was good. So, yes. So, we will get on with the show, I think. And yeah.
Yeah, I think that will be good.
Yeah. Well, we've got, I think they're both from Leeds or York. Can't remember. They sound the same, so.
What a way to introduce people, Benny. Just like, they sound the same.
We've got Blueglasses and we've got Jonny Brooks. Hey, you're right. Are you both from Leeds?
We're both Northerners, that's for sure, because we're both Scandal Club.
I always just say Leeds to anyone somewhere else because no one's ever heard of where I'm actually from. So,
where are you from?
I'll say South Emsall, and no one will have a clue. So I always just say Yorkshire.
Right. Oh yeah, I know Yorkshire.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just googling South Emsall.
All right, you've come on the podcast. And you're
sent to town in England. That's helpful. It's not far from Wakey.
Yeah.
Wakey. You'd be all right there,
I think I've been to Wakey for a gig.
Yeah.
Wakey. You should
it leaves an impact on you.
Wakey.
Yeah. That's legit the name of.
Yeah.
I go well then.
I once did a gig in Wakefield, actually.
So yeah, cool. Before we get down to it, will you guys just tell us briefly what your disability is? We'll go with Blueglasses first.
Oof, bloody hell. How long have we got again?
We've got 45 minutes, no, an hour. So.
Just over an hour. Yeah.
I'll be quick, I'm joking. So I'm wearing my blue glasses, obviously. That's because I have a neurological disorder called Irlens syndrome, which basically in short means my brain doesn't process light in the same way that other humans do. So it affects my mobility and my ability to drive and things like that. And then I have a mental illness called complex PTSD. And I'm neurodiverse because my Irlens syndrome comes under the neurodiversity banner along with my dyslexia as well. So that's me.
Cool.
Wow.
Jonny?
I feel guilty for this because I always laugh at my own condition. The main reason being the middle word in the title of it, because It's called hereditary spastic paraplegia.
Yay! You're
Yay.
Yeah, an actual certified one. So much so that genuinely, I'm a study project at the University of Sheffield because my, as they call it, spasticity gene is fucking huge. So I'm an actual study project for it. But what it basically means is it's like MS, but it's just from the waist down rather than head to toe. So, as far as my brain's concerned, it's told the legs left, right, up, down. And as far as the legs are concerned, it's like, come on, dickhead, give us a clue. So, yeah, that's.
So just in English, you are cerebral palsy in a way.
Yeah.
Because it's spasticity.
This is it. I, rightly or wrongly, like I refer to it as, say, for example, if cerebral palsy was full fat Coke, I've got like the Coke Zero version of it.
Right, yeah. Not this. Yeah.
This is it. It's like the symptoms might be very, very similar to yours, but I'm lucky that it's less parts of the body that it shows itself in.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
So is that your general pickup line for the women then, Jonny? Do you say my spasticity gene is huge?
I'm still trying to work out how to turn it into like a Tinder thing in terms of this part of me.
I think you should have it on your profile, mate.
Yeah. It's so big it's being studied at a university. But yeah. It's having the chops to pull it off and I ain't developed them yet, so maybe one day.
Cool. Well, welcome to the family.
Thank you for having us.
The very dysfunctional family, Benny.
Yeah.
Well, you both are in the disabled Zoom meeting chat room.
I don't know what I've done to deserve it, honestly. I'll get you thinking about it again. Kate, what have I done? Seriously,
I don't know, but sometimes it does feel more. No, it's lovely. It's lovely, but it does feel. Sometimes you're like, okay, we're going over here.
It don't make sense to me.
It's a nice little supportive place for a few of us that just are really good at managing to turn our misfortune into punchlines. So
yeah,
it's a nice place to just to see others kind of, might not sound the best phrasing, but like mentally at least healing that way, that if you can laugh at the things that are wrong and get others to, for me at least anyway, it takes the edge off.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, humor. I mean, it's scientifically proven that humor heals. It's a proven scientific fact. You know,
this is it. There's certainly, for those gigs that by the time I get to them and the old pain receptors are screaming at me even more than the Wi-Fi had did.
That's pretty high pain.
I'm questioning the point of it, but then when you have however many people are in that room really properly laughing at how you explain your life to them, it's like, yeah, do you know what? Absolutely worth it, because I've had the laughter of strangers and now I'm going to have chicken nuggets on my way home because barbecue sauce makes everything better.
Before I forget, because we have forgot, Kate, if you would like to donate to the podcast so we can have these wonderful comedians on, you can donate here. And also, if you can't, apparently it doesn't work. So
you do it, Benny. I want to see you do it. Hold the arms straight as possible.
Apparently it doesn't work. So if it doesn't work, send me a message and I will send you the link.
I genuinely thought you were going to say, send me some cash in the post, would you?
Twitter does not like it when I send the PayPal account, but never mind. So yeah, that's the admin out the way. So yeah. So
Well, it just doesn't like me, full stop. Evil website.
Yeah. So back to you, Blueglasses. Just explain neurodiversity a bit more, because I haven't got a bloody clue what you're on about.
All right, that's great. I love explaining this. Well, because I'm actually a qualified psychotherapist, so I studied the human mind for about 12 years. That was what I did my degrees in, and my postgraduate degrees and my doctorate. So I really got a bit of a keen interest in neurology. And basically, all it is, in the easiest terms to understand, is when an infant's born, they've got two different brain structures. One is, and they got classified, but it's still quite a new term. So people are still getting used to it. So that's probably why you're not familiar with it, or haven't heard of it, because it's really progressive medics that have pushed this term forward. So they used this thing called abnormal psychology. So they realized that some children behaved a little bit different to the general populace. And so they started researching it. And that's where they found out about things like autism and dyslexia and other different learning types. You know, all different manner of things, dyscalculia, things like that. Anyway, basically what they thought it was all like separate things, and then they decided that there was a commonality in the actual neurological functioning of the brain. So basically what they've said, and this is about a dozen years ago it started gaining popularity, is there's two types of brain. So one infant's born with what they call a neurotypical brain, which is what the typical population have, and the rest have what they call a neurodivergent brain, neurodiverse, which is a smaller amount of the population. And people who are on the autistic spectrum, who have dyscalculia, have coordination developmental disorder, or they have dyslexia, or there's a whole other raft of neurological conditions that come under the umbrella, identify as neurodivergent people. We are neurodiverse, so our brains don't think the same.
Cool.
So basically, we're just more awesome.
Jonny, have you got headphones?
I've just muted the chat that kept pinging.
Right. It's all right, because I think we're getting some feedback on your end. I'm not too sure. But it's fine. We can work with it. So, right, shut up, Ben, and get on with the show.
And the Irlens syndrome is part of the neurodiversity, this thing where I wear the blue glasses. So a lot of people with dyslexia find out by default, which is how I found out, that they've got Irlens syndrome, because they try to read and realise they can't read. A typical symptom is not being able to read black text on white, but actually it's about how we modify light. So what happens is they put us these nifty lenses in. So it's nothing to do with my eyesight. It just filters out the light for me so that I can see properly. So some people have pink, some people have orange, some people have green. You might have seen Jonny Depp, he wears them. There's quite a lot of famous people that will wear coloured lenses, and people just think we're wearing sunglasses, but actually it's so we can walk around, get around, read and see properly. Basically our spatial awareness is not quite right if we don't wear them. So before I used to wear them, I was just like bumping into things, knocking over things, you know, it was just crazy, really.
It's like I say on this show, we've all got our own superpower. I mean, Jonny's got two big crutches. He can pretend
Jonny's got the largest spasticity gene.
Exactly.
He's studied at universities by boffins.
So,
Come on.
so
I don't hear the word boffin that much anymore. I like that.
That word.
Oh,
It's a good word.
Isn't it?
say it. Well, she doesn't watch the show, so I'm going to say it. I used to call my sister Zozzy Boffin. She's called Zoe, but Zozzy Boffin, because she was the boss.
That is, it sounds like a cartoon character or something, doesn't it? Now I present you with Ozzy Buffett.
Very cool. So, how did you guys get into comedy, Jonny?
Mainly because all the people who made absolutely no effort to see me do it kept telling me I really should, and if I did, they'd definitely come along.
Right.
So
That's their polite way of saying go practice on someone else, isn't it?
yeah. So I wrote a set, and I did it for the first time at the Verve in Leeds. And on the day of the gig, I'd forgot it all completely. So I just thought, what's the worst that can happen if I get on a stool up there and just talk for a bit? And they all proper laughed.
Yeah.
So I thought, I might not be awful at this. I might actually be decent. And then I actually went away and wrote stuff. And yeah, it's...
Because you do dark comedy.
Yeah. It's strange because it's certainly not like a target that I set myself. So I just let me happen, and it's just like, here's how I explain it. And it just turns out that everything's quite troubling by the time I've... Because I think the night that me and you met, Emma, we did that charity gig somewhere in Leeds, and I don't think I did 6 minutes because there was so much they didn't have any interest in that I was thinking, okay, they didn't like that, so I'll not do that bit, and then did something else and they didn't like that, so I thought...
Was this at Hyde Park, Jonny?
No, it was the charity one somewhere.
I've done a few charity ones.
It's one that Mandy McCarthy were on with us. Yeah. And Lee B.
The Cafe Lux.
That's the one.
You know that place is shut down now because of COVID. Sad, isn't it?
It is, because everything about the people running it and the wonderful support they were giving charities were amazing. Yeah. But it was just that feeling of, when you know you've got X amount of minutes and you've spoke for 2 of them and the gathered crowd don't like anything you're saying, it's like, okay, can I just go back to my Diet Coke that's on the bar now and just...
Oh, gosh, yeah. You have that moment on stage where it's like a bit of like an out-of-body experience, like you're talking for a couple of minutes, and then you realise there's no warmth from the audience. You sort of step outside yourself and look in and just think, cringe, get me off.
This, and I think that the good thing is, the more we do this, you kind of learn from those nights and have like the same joke but maybe different punchlines to it, so you can just vary off in ways and try and save it. But I think I was still only about 20 gigs in at that point, so I didn't really have anything but what I turned up with. So, you know, like when you make eye contact with that one person and their glare of disapproval just...
That is never a good idea. Never make eye contact on it. Never do.
I didn't want to, but he was like 6'7"ish, so even though he was sat at the back, he stood out so much above everyone else
that you couldn't help but to see him.
Even if I heard other people laugh, just the sternness of his glare wiped everything out, and it was just like, oh.
And the thing was about that evening, this is another thing when you perform live, is like if you compare it to like the Verve, which was one of my first gigs as well. It was one of my first gigs actually at the Verve as well, which was about a year before I met you. it's dark. So a lot of comedy nights, if they're in traditional settings, they're kind of underground or below surface, darkly lit for a reason, so that when you're on stage, you can just project yourself and you don't have that anxiety. But it was very well lit that night, and you could see right to the back of the room. It was full. It was full to capacity. I remember it very clearly, and I felt so anxious. Because the other thing that's weird, when it's well lit, you feel like you're even more visible. Like I felt quite vulnerable on stage. I felt like everybody could see like every little tiny bit of me. Do you know what I mean? As though the lights were just like right on me. And I tell you what, my blessing is, Jonny, that I've got bloody Irlens. I couldn't see a thing. I couldn't see a back room.
That's amazing. So we just
I can't see if it's dark.
How did you get into comedy then, Emma?
Oh, it's a really long-winded story, so I have to shorten it. But basically, I'm into writing. That's my thing, right? I never even realised that I was into comedy. A bit similar to Jonny in the fact that you have friends go, "Oh, you're funny, you're funny." They didn't ever say to me, do comedy. That should have been my first warning signal, but never mind. I'll just scrap over that. But yeah, so I always went to comedy and consumed it, but never really give it much more thought than that. But I've always liked performing, you know, stood like amateur dramatics and that kind of thing. But I've not done it for years. But I actually had a mental breakdown a few years ago. And because of that, I had massive social anxiety, and I was trying to get back out and I'd started doing a lot of creative writing, and I thought, I wonder if I can put this writing to use. So I saw a local comedy course advertised, and I thought, right, 2 birds, 1 stone. It'll get me writing on a regular, because that's the first thing you're forced to do. If you do any comedy course, you have to learn to write your own material. You can't take other people's. And then the other thing was, obviously, I'll meet people and force myself to go out again. And so it worked at both angles. And yeah, that was about 2.5 years ago now, 2 years ago. So I've done loads of gigs and been very busy, as you know, through the lockdowns online, which has been great. Because obviously I've got a global audience, being able to work with people globally. But yeah, I just love trying to write my own material. That's what motivates me. I love it. And seeing what, like Jonny says, what works, what doesn't work, things like that.
Yeah.
So I did the comedy course with somebody called Silky in Leeds. He's very well known in Leeds. He trains a lot of people. So I did his comedy course. He does a stand-up comedy and an improv. But unfortunately, I wasn't well enough to travel to his improv course. But there was another one in Central Leeds run by Comedy Discount Warehouse. So I did their improv course as well. But unfortunately, to do improv, you have to have a group. So the good thing is I've managed to do a bit of that online during the lockdown, as you know, a bit of the improv. So that's my next step for me. I want to see if I can do a bit more improv, because I find generally it builds your confidence and your skills, because you have to use your physicality more, you know, and how you are, your presence and stuff, which is good fun. Yeah. Because that's one of the challenges at the minute I find with the online gigs. Like even just chatting tonight, we're sat, obviously you can see we're sat down, aren't we? Yeah. So I'm curious to know about your experience, Jonny, because you call yourself the sat down comedian, don't you? Yeah. The stand up, sit down, sat down. Is that how you word yourself?
Sat down, stand up.
I hope, because I'm a dyslexic, I always want to say it wrong.
Oh,
But yeah, I really want to know what your experience is like actually sitting on a stage. Do you feel that affects like how the audience receives jokes?
I think, because obviously I'm not a prop comic deliberately, but when you see me walk to a stage, you've seen the limp and the crutches, and that sets up everything I say after it. But when you just see me sat down talking and literally having to like wave crutches at the screen to try and give some context to what I'm saying, it doesn't ever come across as well online as when I've done it in venues, because at least they can see where it's coming from.
Although, remember that time at Cafe, look, there were them stairs, weren't there, that you had to go up? I mean, it was only 2, but...
Yeah. But that comes back to, I mean, Kate, you sit down, don't you?
I sit down in on online gigs. I'm sitting down. I do stand up normally when I'm standing up.
Yeah.
But what I do is in my online stuff at the moment, I moan about how, because genuinely whenever you do a gig, someone goes, would you like a, you go, oh, would you like a stool? Now for me, a stool would just be awful because I'd spend my entire allotted 5-10 minutes actually climbing onto the damn thing.
Yeah.
So, you know, because if it was like a normal sensible chair, fine, but it's always a proper, like, I want to say Bill Hicks kind of stool and that's not for me.
I proper love that, because mine, again, it's always like sort of the Goldilocks thing in terms of it's either so high that I need two helpers to help me climb on it, or so low that all I can do is literally think I'm stood above it, drop, and hope that I land on it. There's very few things that are actually like you'd sitting at home where it's just a pretty level slide into. So
I used to sit on a stool, but I felt so awkward and embarrassed asking for one. I struggle now when I shouldn't have to struggle.
No, it shouldn't be a battle for you to get out there and do.
Yeah, it's
don't
also
you find it fascinating that they? Sorry, Kate. I was going to say, don't you find it fascinating that they accommodate the audience so well? I have the feeling, because I've had the experience myself as a consumer of comedy. If I was to contact the venue and say, "Hi, you know, I'm coming in as a disabled person. Can you make these adjustments?" All over it to accommodate me, give me appropriate chair, sit me at the front, do whatever they need to do, but not the act. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like the stool thing I find is quite weird, because it's like, oh, you must need to sit down. You know, that's kind of if you want to sit down, but then it's like, but you're not giving me a chair I can actually use. So it's kind of like when there should be kind of a question going, are you okay with a stool or would you prefer a chair? You know, that kind of like a couple of options.
It's just the amount of times where you get something that it's almost like a footstool rather than one to sit on. And I've had them where they're literally like, you know, the old school 15-centimeter ruler. I'm sure that's like higher than the stool I've been given to sit on, and it's like I don't feel I can say no, but I also know I can't stand up to do this, so I'm just gonna have to take a planned fall and hope I land on it.
I have been booked on a gig with you, Jonny. I won't mention the gig because I respect the guy and he's fantastic. But, however, the room he does it in and with your crutches, how the hell was you meant to get from the door to the stage without falling over people? It's like, okay.
There's a good few like that where you're just like, we've got into this weird little habit, me and the lad that I do most of my gigs with, of we'll get there that 10 minutes earlier. If we've not been there before, for like, okay, how do I get in and out of here alive today? And then just sort of plan a survival route around that. And it's it's a weird thing to have to factor in. But when you sort of realize, like you touched on earlier, with the fact that with most comedy it happens in either attics or basements, there's pretty much nothing at ground floor level.
Accessible levels,
I'm glad that the first one were at the Verve, because once I managed to tackle that staircase, that was like my New York. If I could make it there, I could make it anywhere. So to anyone that's
the thing is as well, like with other art forms, yeah. So I don't know, like how often any of you guys have been to see some like poetry performed, but like some of my friends love to write and perform poetry. Always accessible venues, always on the ground floor, always on the main atriums of like pubs and bars.
I've never noticed, because the problem is I get told off quite a lot for this, that where a lot of people that we do comedy with have got like an unquenchable thirst for it and are always watching and reading and studying and
It's crazy.
I just watched Murder, She Wrote.
That's brilliant.
That's why I feel so strongly in working hard this lockdown to find funding, to find sponsorship, so when I'm out of lockdown, I can provide a disability accessible gig in
that's beautiful.
Nottingham or Derby. But
yeah, and I want to do the same here in Leeds.
Without the funding, I won't be able to do it, but I am working so hard.
Oh, credit to you on that. It really is. It's beautiful that you don't just notice how there's an absence of those nights, but you want to do the work to try and remedy that. And so there's somewhere that's safe and accessible and comfortable for us to entertain anyone else that wants to come along.
I'm just going to pick up G and B day, because that is the first able-bodied gig, Zoom gig, I have been on where there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 disabled comedians. It was like we was at Laugh Able.
It was genuinely like that. Yeah, I've got to say, because I was actually on with Benny on that, and it was that thing of suddenly going. If I'm brutally honest, I mean, all credit to CMB for doing this, but it was that thing of I sort of did desperately just check my email, check my message saying, was this a theme night? And I missed like the kind of memo. And I was like, oh no, it's just, I was like, yes, brilliant. But I just suddenly had a panic going, was this, sort of thinking, was this a theme night? And I missed it.
I mean, normally he has more than one disabled comedian on a real gig, doesn't it? Or is it because you're in London and we're up here?
What's a London gig like? No, I've definitely done gigs, and specifically GMB as well, before, where I haven't been the only disabled act on there.
Oh right.
And that's in person as well as via Zoom. So I was always very impressed with that.
All right, it must be up here then.
I think I've only had it twice, and it's weird how much I panicked, because the other person's always gone on before me, and it's like, okay, so they've done what have I got left to talk about that's different?
That leads to one of my questions. Can I just ask, do you feel, I mean, obviously you both say you have a visual thing. So Emma, you have your blue glasses, Jonny, you have your crutches. Do you feel a pressure to talk about your disability from you, or from promoters, or from an audience, or what? Was it sort of just like, I have to address this? And how did you come across that? Assuming you do.
Yeah.
But when I did my comedy training, interestingly enough, there was quite a lot of people on that training, and I would say, in terms of, because a lot of people, obviously, there's a lot of discussion about this, isn't it? Whether mental illness is a disability or not, and it is a grey area, because some mental health conditions are not, and some mental illnesses definitely are legally. So, like my condition, it is a mental illness, but you can't see it, like you say, Kate. It's hidden. But then you can see that I'm wearing glasses. So what does that mean? You know, so it's a bit confusing, because a lot of my material originally was about living with my anxiety. Like I said, it was because I was overcoming some of my issues around my anxiety and going out. But what was interesting is the group that were training to do the stand-up comedy, if we just look at like mental health conditions included, I would say something like 60% of them would have had, you know, either a mental health condition or a disability, and wanted to talk about in that material. And it was very much organic. They just wanted to use what they were doing. But a lot of people don't feel comfortable with that. They want, some people like for example, I'm just not good at writing one-liners. I just cannot do it. I have to have a story and a little bit of just something that happened to me kind of thing. I have to write about something I know about. Because unfortunately, because of my dyslexia, the cognitive issues, and at the time when I was performing, because I had clinical depression, the medication I was on was severely impacting my cognition and being able to remember things, which now I've come off the medication, that's improving slightly, but I'm still new to performing without medication and not having that issue. So I wasn't able to remember my sets that I was writing anyway. So it actually started out as a necessity to talk, ironically, about my disability, because it's like the one thing I could remember. I was like, oh yeah, like, you know, oh, I'm doing this. And actually, the other thing that's interesting is when I first started in comedy, I didn't have my blue glasses, which is why I've changed my branding. So I was wearing just ordinary glasses, because I've worn them since I was 2 anyway, because I was born bog-eyed, which got repaired by the nice doctor in Leeds. So no longer bog-eyed, now I just wear blue glasses.
I got a lazy eye. So.
Me too. I got one
Are you
overcorrected,
sure you're
actually.
just not lazy altogether, Benny?
Yeah.
What about you, Johnny? I know the answer, but
I mean, the eyes are fine. It's just the rest of me that's lazy. But no, to try and answer your question as an adult,
You don't have to, no pressure.
The main friend that encouraged me to do this, he studies comedy a lot more than I do, and he was like, if you look at anything that basically isn't a straight white male doing comedy, their set is about the minority that they represent. Yeah. He says, if you get up there and they've seen the state of your legs and then you do material that isn't about them, they aren't going to be listening to it, because they'll just be looking at your legs and wondering what's wrong. So he says, you don't have to do your entire set about, but at least if you address that up front, address like that weird moving elephant in the room, and then once you've given them that info, do what you want. And annoyingly, we're right, because once you kind of give that level of info out and people then understand why they were applauding for what felt like an hour and a half while you were walking like the 6 foot to the stool, they're a bit more at ease then. So yeah, it's kind of working well on that front, that at least by addressing it from the start, I can then go off and do day-to-day stuff like everyone does. But yeah, it's as someone put it the other day, there's the worry that because later on they'll do more surgery on my other foot, what do I do for a set if I can suddenly actually walk? Because at the minute, so much of it is about the fact that I clearly can't at the minute. So that'll be interesting if I have to like completely reinvent everything.
Will you do what other comedians who think it's funny to pretend to be an autistic person or a simple one? You go with your crutches.
I found it really peculiar. One of the first nights that I did a gig with someone else that had a disability and they went on before me, they actually grilled me more at the interval than everyone else did.
Really?
And because it was a gong show and I did quite well at it, he was like genuinely asking me, so have you got like developmental issues? Is that why you kept pausing while you were talking? It was like, no, I just stopped while they were laughing.
Yeah, that's your timing. I've seen you perform. That's what you do. You allow space for them to laugh because that's what you're supposed to do. Yeah.
Exactly. And then it was like, no, it's just that. She's like, oh, it's a gong trick, so you can slide through. I'm like, no. If they don't laugh, I carry on talking. If they do laugh, I wait for them to finish. But he was just convinced that it weren't just my legs. I've got some sort of only written in crayon type condition. And it was just like, I'm not going to argue with you because, bless you, I could see physically at least he was in a much worse state than me. So I certainly wasn't going to get into anything confrontational, but it was just weird that his attitude towards me seemed to be more aggressive than anyone else on the lineup.
There are a lot of disabled people like that. I know quite a few, because I think me and UK are the same on this thing. Whenever we're on a lineup with a fantastic disabled person like Rosie Jones, I've said it again. She's gonna think we're fake. That is generally what I feel like.
Fake / taking their act.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you're doing my act. Like, I'm not doing your act.
So you get like imposter syndrome. Seriously.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But then again, I have heard. I mean, only like when you hear things, as you hear things, just people chatting. But I don't know if it's actually true that some people have done that in the comedy scene. Some people have faked being gay, or some people have faked having a disability just to give themselves a niche part to their act. I mean, I find that quite shocking, but apparently that happens.
I've seen that happen with the with you were saying about pretending to be gay, Emma. I actually genuinely met someone who said, "Oh, I pretend to be gay for this particular," and we all just, and I just sort of backed away very slowly, and was just like, I was just like, no, and I was like, don't do that. But yeah, I was just like,
wow. I wanted to touch on something before we've got 10 minutes. Jonny and Emma, well, everyone, the Pip, who's on Pip here and who's on WDP? No,
WB, Department of Work and Pensions.
Yeah.
Disability living allowance.
Yeah.
Is that like WD-40? We get a bit creepy.
As in double D40. And who's on? Well, I'm on high. Jonny, are you on high?
I've never been high. I never take drugs.
No, I got high mobility and medium care.
Right.
I got medium care and no mobility because the dickheads. Sorry.
Yeah.
I've got everything.
Oh, yes. Right,
you got the full bingo card.
Trap, Jonny. This is a trap.
I mean, we had a Zoom meeting with some disabled comedians on Wednesday, and it got very serious, only because I care, and I'm like, no, you've got to do this, you've got to do that.
Yeah.
And I couldn't understand why people worse than me still can't get the high rate. All like Jonny, I know a bit about your mental disability. It's like, why are you? I'm gonna lose my benefits tomorrow now, but why are you medium and I'm high? Is it because I've got a care plan? And when I did my assessment, they had my care plan. Have you got a care plan, Jonny?
No, I think for mine, it's literally every time I turn up for assessments,
Right.
I've had yet more metal put in the left foot. So because I've like 4 more letters, and this time I actually came home with like an A4 sheet of like the 70 different stickers of all the plates, bolts, pins, and everything they've put in to hold that foot together. So because I can just say, yeah, it was bad 2 years ago, here's the proof it's worse, touch wood, that keeps being like re-awarded.
So without the medical letters, you would have been written it's a medical condition,
Yeah.
a disability.
I mean, the frustration is when I was first awarded DLA as it was,
Right.
under a government with a soul, I just got a letter saying, we've read the letters, we know this is a degenerative condition that has been awarded for life.
Right.
Don't worry about it. While ever you're alive, this will be paid.
Yes, I've
a different kind of government to try and keep things polite takes over, and your medical history means nothing. You must beg to maintain the level of support you've had every 2.5 years, and if you don't beg with the right words, they'll just turn that tap off. And
oh, so you haven't got it for life?
no, I had it initially for life, but as I say, despite the fact they have it in writing, there is no way of dealing with the symptoms I have. It is something that will just constantly progress and get worse and take a bigger hold on my ability to get round. But rather than just accept that and allow me the mental piece of having that financial support in place, because it's little things like I benefit from that access to work scheme. Yes. So I can get taxis to and from to keep things doable. Yeah. Obviously, if they decide at some point that the benefits stop, it isn't just the immediate loss of needed income. It's then the very thing that makes it possible for me to physically go in and carry on working then gets taken away as well. And it's just, it's the awful game that they play with people's lives just so that a company can make money reviewing us, because that's what it is.
They think they're God.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know the statistics because I forgot to research.
They're all evil.
I believe a lot of people have killed themselves because they haven't got the right benefits and the right support. I mean,
well, part of why that will have happened, knowing myself when I had my breakdown and being suicidal, is because the medical model that they're using. What's weird in Britain is the law actually legally represents people with mental illness. It's classed as a disability. That's fine. You can be assessed for PIP. You can be assessed for benefits based on having that disability. But then the people that come in and do the assessment totally disregard your mental well-being. So when I was having my PIP assessment, because I could physically pick up a mobile phone, I wasn't mentally ill, apparently. So the fact that I was actively suicidal was completely irrelevant, because I could pick up a mobile phone and move my hands around. So you see, it's things like that. And that's why people have taken their lives, because you're having somebody come into your home and sit there in front of you and then write you a letter afterwards saying you're not mentally ill, when you've been living for 20 years with a mental illness. Now, there can't be anything more insulting. If there isn't something that's going to push you over the edge, that would be it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy. I wish we could talk more about it, but Kate, we've got a very serious question.
I mean, this is ultimately the most serious question we ask all night.
Yes.
Well,
I think I know it's going to be.
You know what's going to happen, is it? So, for the tally, Jonny, Emma,
It's a serious thought, this one.
favourite biscuit.
Oh, it's so hard to decide.
We are very loose here, by the way, for those of you that are, we're very loose with the definition of biscuit. It doesn't have to be sweet.
I found a new biscuit today, Kate. I didn't even know it existed. Let's see if I can go find it. Hang on, I'll show you it.
Go on, Jonny, I know what yours is.
I don't think it even is, but I legally obliged to say bourbon because
What's ours?
Yes.
my joke about it and the amount of love that I get from middle-aged men who love the idea that it justifies them having a packet for the breakfast.
Do you know what? I found where I can get a jumbo pack of bourbon biscuits for 75p.
That is beautiful shopping.
Yeah.
Incredible shopping, that man, because they're rather Moorish. Once you've had one,
Oh yes,
through the packet. But yeah, that's me.
I love the salt. Oh,
Yeah.
If you taste it, it's got a hint of salt.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just it's happiness for me. That's what it tastes of.
You know, that's so much more eat more, doesn't it?
I had no idea. I was clueless on that one.
I'm learning all sorts of things tonight, Emma.
Yeah.
No, that's true, because you genuinely have biscuit with a drink, don't you? And if you have a salt, it makes you thirsty. So then you drink more, so then you have more biscuits. That's cool. It's my method anyway. But,
Wow.
But I struggled with this one because obviously when I became vegan, it changed which biscuits I could have. Bourbons are vegan, so
yeah,
they are.
I could probably become vegan then.
Yeah.
Based on that, I was terrified I wasn't going to be allowed a bourbon biscuit, so that's fine.
Basically, I just ate bourbons for a week at first. So you could have bourbons, but then Oreos became my next fix after bourbons because they're yummy. So this week on, I don't watch it, but you know that I'm a Celebrity. There was a bit of talk on vegan Facebook about a woman on there who's from ex-Coronation Street star, because apparently she had a jammy Dodger, and people were like in uproar going, is that vegan or not? And it is. Just want to say for the record, jammy Dodgers they've changed their ingredients back and they are now vegan. But this is what I found today, because Biscoff are popular vegan. And basically this Biscoff, they now do it in a spread. You can spread it on your toast. Oh, it's delicious. So these are Biscoff creams.
Yeah.
Lovely.
to try and start
Well,
guys. I would share one with you if I could.
Without sounding like the proper Giacomo stereotype I am, I have that Biscoff spread in both smooth and crunchy formats. Leaving no Biscoff stone unturned, as well as all the ice creams as well. I've got a freezer drawer full of.
I've never tried the ice cream either. What about hobnobs though? So there's this one right at Aldi, and they're called Oaties. Oh, they're just so nice.
I very rarely look at the calorie level of anything because why? But the hobnob genuinely like scared me because it was like really. I'm pretty sure that a battered Mars bar is about the same as this. But then you dip it in a brew and it's magic.
On that note, people, we have come to the end of the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jonny and Emma.
Yes.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you. Yes, CK, we got it.
We have to remember to thank the guests.
And
Something like Sarah Milliken then, Kate.
I haven't put my foot in it this week.
Yes. Last week he literally, I was trying to thank the guests and he ended the broadcast. So that was.
On that note, next week we've got World Disabled Day.
It's called International. I'll say it's called International Day of People with Disabilities or Persons with Disabilities, depending on the website. And it's a stupid name. It's a great thing.
Wow.
Stupid name.
And they are not comedians.
Wow.
It's me and Mark. Me and Mark are, but yeah. So
that'll be interesting.
Indeed.
And enjoy the music. Stick around, guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid that's all we have time for tonight from Benny and the gang. Please remember to subscribe and click on the bell for more notifications on the next instalment of Benny Shakes Things Up. If you want to support the podcast or you like the jingle from Leicester in Nottingham, please click on the links below. Adios, amigos.